I remember being in situations where I felt like somebody doubted me, and I just like I want to prove that person wrong. Like, and the things he was doing in his life, like that's what Laban does to him, right? He tricks him. Do you think people have moments in life that redefine who they are? Welcome to episode 2 of the Faith Society. I'm your host, Jose. This is my co-host, Steve. We're recording this on a Sunday, which is daylight savings time today. So, I messed Steve up a little bit, but he made it. Amen, amen.
Amen.
So, man, I mean, before we get, dive into it, man, just let the people know what you were doing today, man. How was your Sunday? How was how was Steve's Sunday?
So I worshipped today. And the first time that I've actually been able to freely worship in a while. And I just got down on my knees and I was actually, just testimony, man, because from where I was back in July of 2025, my life went was like, and then it just said, "Phew."
Hey,
But I always
I'm
had a
gonna interrupt you.
foundation.
Wait, hold on. I'm gonna interrupt you though because like our last episode, so just so everybody knows, Steve doesn't exactly know what we're talking about when we go at the beginning of these episodes, right? He's kind of in the blind. He knows, we're going through the Bible. This is like our group Bible study with you guys. Um, so before I can sense where he's going because me and Steve talk on a daily basis. Um, so I can sense where he's going. So before he starts talking, I'd rather us start the episode, for real, and then he could tell us these stories in the context of what I'm discussing, and then he gonna see how it, like I said last week, it's just amazing how God works, man,
I
and
got
so
you. I got you. Okay, okay. Okay.
all right,
But anyways,
all right, so
I got to worship. I got to worship. And it was
yeah,
deep. It
yeah,
was deep.
yeah.
That's all. We'll just leave it there.
No, no, no. It's That's dope. That's dope. And like I said last episode, we're working our way through the Bible, and we're in the second half of Genesis today, and the second half of Genesis really focuses on Jacob, and you know he's kind of one of the most interesting characters, in the Bible because his life is kind of difficult, and it's kind of messy. At the beginning of his story, he he's manipulates people. He makes a lot of questionable decisions, and he spends a lot of time in his life trying to get ahead. And then at some point in his story, it eventually becomes one of a transformation. And I think this fits perfectly where Steve was heading. And I think something that we all can point to, like I think it's something we all can resonate with. And the question I really want to focus on for this episode is, how do people actually change? Like what actually causes someone to become a different person over time. So for you, I really want you to tell me, what stood out to you about Jacob's story, and then you could kind of tell us how that reflects to you and your life.
Yeah, just give me a second to
Now that
process Jacob's story specifically, because like you said, there's so much there, and I'm just trying to point a specific event that makes me look at him. Okay, I got one. For namesake, I don't like messing up name, but okay, Jacob has an uncle, and his uncle's name is not Lot, but I want to say like his uncle's name starts with an L and everything. But can you find, if you can find it faster than I can, if you have it, if it mentions his uncle?
1 second. You talking about, is it Laban?
Laban, yeah, Laban, Laban, yeah,
Laban,
yep,
Laban, Laban.
exactly.
The
Okay,
same
okay,
thing.
perfect. So he ends up going
I'm gonna
to
mess up names in
his
the Bible just so everybody
no, no,
knows.
no,
Like
you're
you have,
good. He ends up
you
going to
have
his uncle's house, and basically he falls in love with Rachel. And his uncle's like, you can have Leia. Well, he kind of tricks him and makes him sleep with the younger daughter. And it's like, oh yeah, I mean the older daughter, whatever which way it works, because I don't have it up in front of me and I haven't studied this. This is just off my head. This is why I'm having a hard time um doing it piece by piece. But the story comes up to me because it shows the humility there after Jacob is that schemer. So right, so this is Jacob is in this situation right now because he gets kicked out of his father's house basically because he stole from his brother Esau. Completely stole his birthright along with his mother. And his mother's just like Rachel, she's like, get out of here, go to Laban. And Laban's no better than Jacob, and they're both schemers. And I had a similar situation like that. I'm not gonna go into detail
you
like
don't gotta
that,
go
but
into detail. You don't gotta
and
go
I'm
into
not going
detail.
to detail like that, but I ended up in a situation where two schemers were staring right at each other, and it was like, you know, so to answer your question about now, how does one go through change? Mm, it comes to facing the fears, man. Because up here, I truly am a believer that if you have Holy Spirit, if you are going through the process, right? I would say go through the process of disciplining yourself to become a worthy disciple of Messiah, and you go through the process of studying wisdom that comes straight from that book. You're going to come to a place to where you realize that you've been messing up here and here. But now what comes out in the flesh is something that's going to cause a huge scar. And I've got scars. I've got scars with coming to that revelation of, okay, I have been a manipulator. I have been cunning, just like Jacob, and it's the funny thing about it. And once you come there and you surrender to what the will of heaven has for you, what the Father has for you, immediately a rushing wind will come. And when that rushing wind comes, you can try to hold on to a firm foundation that is not yours to hold on to. You can just let go and say, what's that famous quote? Jesus, take the wheel.
No, I agree. I agree, and I think that that's a perfect like where we're headed, right? But I really want to focus, start the story at the beginning for Jacob, and even his early identity, right, and build off of that. So, like in the Bible, it states that Jacob, it means heel grabber, and like you were mentioning, like he starts his life off being manipulative, being super competitive, and at the early part of his life, he's basically trying to secure things for himself with disregard for other people. So, do you think people naturally try to get ahead like that? Like, is that something that we're inherently born with, or is that something that over time you learn it?
You're asking a deep question there, bro.
Because like I'll say like this, right? Like, 'cause I'll say like this, like even if you look at it like competition, right? Like I know I could say for me, especially in my younger years, I'm 30, I'm about to be 37 now, so I'm a father already, but I'm basically unk to a lot of people. Like I'm in that unk era of my life, and I could say like competition. Even if you just say competition, like I've been competitive, like, and not even just when you come to sports, right? Like I remember being in situations where I felt like somebody doubted me, and I just like I want to prove that person wrong. Like in my head, I was competing with them. Like that Michael Jordan meme. Like that's all. When he says, "Oh, somebody said this about me," that's all it took. And he switched into that mode of I gotta prove that person wrong. And that person might have not even have known that I wasn't in competition with them. But just because I felt disrespected, I was like, I have to prove this person wrong. Even if they don't even realize it. Like in my head, I'm like, nah, I can't be, that person that they expect me to be. I gotta be better. And that also ambition, right? Like I think ambition, like looking at it, like what are you willing to do to get to the top of the mountain? Like how, like what risk are you willing to take that you shouldn't take? And like I know me in my 20s, like I was focused on me, like, and I that's how Jacob, I relate to him because I just remember being focused on me trying to get ahead, even if that meant hurting somebody else. And I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I've held somebody back. I don't want to say I've done that, but I definitely know that I've put myself first in a lot of situations, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does, bro. And I'm gonna follow up on your question about that inherent thing that you were saying is like it's inherent. The issue with that is if we look at where Jacob comes from, his father is Isaac and his dad is Abraham. I mean, his grandfather is Abraham. Now Abraham messes around and gets Sarah's Hagar. Like I said, names. I'm bad at names too, but Hagar gets pregnant. Ishmael, right? Let's just jump to names. So Ishmael. So you have Isaac and Ishmael. Now there's already I'm not going to talk about generational curses, but generational patterns. You already got an issue where, there's other women involved. Mm, you know, is a so our polygamy. A lot of people bother with those kind of things too, but they don't realize that it messed up the household, man. So Isaac kind of got a bad rap, and I'm not going to say that it was meant for Jacob to be inherently evil, but from a household perspective, the background that it's coming from, it was a little chaotic. It wasn't supposed to happen, and the reason why I'm bringing this up because it wasn't supposed to happen that way. Abraham was not supposed to have another child outside of Isaac. He disobeyed God when he did that, and there's a thing, and there's a key to that answer is that disobedience isn't just for you, especially you as a father. You can understand that and relate that the decisions that you make right now for your son can affect his own children. We have to accept that, so I can't blame Jacob and say that you know the curse was just placed on him. I think it was more like a prophetic, like, hey, this is going to happen because you know what, you never fixed the situation, man. You just kind of let it go, and we can see Abraham never really did anything about it. He just kind of was like, hey, get out of my house to Ishmael. And guess what happened to Esau? Esau went to Ishmael's people and had kids with, guess what? Ishmael's people. So, yeah.
Yeah, but like you're saying though, right? Like in this situation, like Jacob, he deceived to get that blessing, right? To get that birthright, he's manipulative. And that I think that shows, especially early on, that Jacob is trying to control like the outcome of his life. Like he's trying to write it like this is how it needs to happen. And not really thinking like it could go this way and still be good, right? It's more of a like I gotta get it done this way. Like my future has to be secured this way.
Sometimes it's
And
the best. Sometimes it's the best we know how to do. That doesn't mean that we don't take accountability once it's ready to be taken.
yeah, no, absolutely. But my question to you is, do you think people today still live like that? Where they're trying to control every outcome.
Yes. Yes. I don't see why you wouldn't. And I mean that in the most bare way possible, like just being on the side of, neutral as possible. Why wouldn't you want all of the outcomes that you live your life to be the way you want it? And I mean that for the most holiest of holiest people. The person who wants the best and the best for the best will always, have prayers for everybody else, their children, their family, and they will always want everything to go well. And that is a promise that's even in heaven. But at the same time, you have people who, like you were saying, want to go for themselves. And there's an issue with that because it's morally wrong, so there's nothing wrong. I just want to throw that out there. There's nothing wrong with being ambitious.
No, I agree, but that's what I'm saying. When's that ambition? Where's that line at? Right between like godly ambition, let's say godly ambition, and being manipulative, and
Selfishness.
and when those situations occur, right? How do you react when life humbles you? I think in Jacob's story, like you said, like in Genesis, when we read it, you know, the same type of deception he used and the things he was doing in his life, like that's what Laban does to him, right? He tricks him, and it's a humbling situation for him, right? Because he ends up in the situation that he did not want to be in. He
Exactly.
ends up not being able to control the outcome because he was tricked. So, you know, how do you think life has, do you think life has a way of humbling people over time?
Yep. 100%. I am a firm believer in what Jesus said. You reap what you sow. You know, that's not just a financial thing, man. A lot of people call it karma or whatever, however you want to place it, man. Listen, you treat people, live by the sword, die by the sword. I'm just gonna use his words, man. I don't like bringing my own philosophy, but Jesus says all these things. You know, do unto others as you want done to yourself, and you put in the perspective of love, man. There's an energy that moves with negative energy and positive energy, and if you're putting negative energy out there, it's gonna come back and humble you. Pride.
100%.
Pride
Right.
pride happens before the fall.
I agree with you. I honestly, that's what I was thinking too. Like, people have different sayings for, like you mentioned, karma. What goes around comes around, and it's even today when I went to church today, when I went to service, we had like a guest pastor, but he mentioned like what you put into the world, you're going to get back, and so like
You reap what you sow.
you reap what you sow. You put good into the world, it might not happen right away, right? The good might not come back to you, but over time, I feel like it's going to lean heavily in that way, right? It's going to favor you more than it will hurt you by putting good out into the world.
Shout out to
And
Mike Murdoch. Mike Murdoch has a few good books on that. He's a well known name, but he has a few good books on reaping what you sow. So
yeah,
yeah, Mike Murdoch. Shout out to him.
yeah, no, definitely. And I think even in times of in seasons of struggle, right? You still have to be positive. You still have to be. I remember hearing this years ago, and I can't remember if it was like on YouTube. It was for sure a pastor somewhere, and that something that I've made like almost a model, right? Like a setback is a set up for a comeback. So even when you face a certain situation that is difficult, you're not supposed to like stay in that season, right? You're not supposed to like swim in that pool. You're supposed to get out. You're supposed to dry off, and you're not going to dry off right away. It's going to take time, but if you stay in that pool of struggle, then it's going to be tough. You're going to hate life. You're going to hate the way you live, and that's from experience. Like I could easily wake up every day and just be like, not today. I'm not feeling it. Like you mentioned, like you were starting off today's episode. Like 6 months ago, you weren't where you wanted to be compared, but you didn't stay in that place that you were in 6 months ago. And now we're here. We're at episode 2, and we're relating to Jacob. So you know, in line with Jacob, we'll keep it moving. But
That's
you know,
right.
in line with Jacob. So the next thing that I want to talk about with Jacob, is in Genesis, he's in a situation with God, right? Like he's somewhat like resisting him, wrestling him, and in this era of his life, things change for him, right? Like instead of him being Jacob, he becomes Israel. And it's not just a name change, it's a life change, right? Like it's a movement for him. And my question to you, and you could say this in a real life situation or even just an overall picture in our culture, in our world, and whatever. Do you think people have moments in life that redefine who they are?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say for people like you and I, we're not the best to describe that because we're still becoming. I would say this is, I think, larger studies from better men. And shout out to another leader and mentor of mine, Joshua Selman. But he taught me about stages of life, the phases. Phase one, phase two, phase three. I can't remember where the phase ends, but there are the chronos. So Father God works in time. Remember the first episode we were talking about Alpha and Omega from the beginning of the end. We started saying about free will. Now you just asked me, are there certain points in somebody's life that redefine them? It's meant to, 100%. Okay, now those can be very hard lessons, Jose, or those can be platform extenders. Somebody can be up here and go from all the way up here, and somebody can go from here, go down here, and then have to get back here, or somebody can start down here. You know, it depends a lot on what you're taking in and what you're putting out.
No, I agree. I agree with that, and I think even moments in our like I, you know, personally, like I've had moments in my life that obviously have redefined me. Made I feel like made me a better person. Like like mentioned earlier, like I remember being super competitive, and that might have helped me personally, but I just don't think that helped me spiritually. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like a very elementary example I can say is like I remember being in high school or even in my early 20s, like playing sports, like I was super competitive. And even when it was a situation where I'm like, I got to get going, like I would try to get under somebody's skin, even if it had nothing to do with the sport. There were situations where I would talk about anything just so you could get mad at me. And because when you get mad at me, you start talking. It's like, all right, this is what I needed. This is that spark I needed to get me going. And all right, now, and I'm the one who started it. You know what I mean? Like I'm in the situation where I'm over here talking bad about you, and you say one thing that sparks me, and I'm like, oh, bet. Oh, you gonna say that? That you gonna say that? I bet. And then now I'm going. And I remember playing basketball like a year ago. I just didn't have it in me anymore, and maybe that made me like, we're playing for fun, right? It's a game we're playing for fun, but maybe that made me less competitive in that sport. But I'm just like out there, and I'm like, I do not want to talk bad about nobody. Like I
I
just don't
doubt
have
it.
that.
I doubt
You
that's
know,
the case, man. I doubt that's
I
the
did not.
case.
I did not have it in me, man. I did not, and I just remember like these 20 something year olds were like out there, like really reminded me of myself from 10 years ago, and I'm like, Brian got that. Like I'm not trying to fight nobody out here. Like I'm just trying to have fun. Like
Exactly.
and I think that's something elementary that I can use as an example without getting too crazy. But that's and I think that transitioned perfect into what I wanted to talk about next because I'm talking about my past and how that changed for me today, and I think that is perfect for Jacob's story too, right? Like in Genesis, he meets Esau again, and with everything that's happened between them, he's in a situation where they are face to face again.
Hmm.
But in that situation, he's expecting conflict, but it doesn't happen, right? In that situation, there's forgiveness. So, I guess my question to you is why do you think today forgiveness is difficult for people?
Accountability, exposure, truth, and you got to have that conversation, man. Because okay, listen, sorry, this is bothering my beard. Um, it doesn't matter if Esau comes. I'm just using my own example personally. It doesn't matter if Esau comes up to me, and I'm just using anybody for that example, or if I'm Jacob and or if I'm Esau, it doesn't really matter. We got to talk. I can forgive and everything, but if it's kind of like a deep cut wound like that, that's like, hey, this is not just some, hey, we fell out. Oh man, what happened? What's going on? But if there's like a deep cut wound or something like that, that hurts the other person, especially the one that's running away and fearing that there's going to be a confrontation. It's usually because they know that there's accountability there, that they did something, to initiate that. And I find that, and the reason why I say that is because I find with most people who are truly innocent, they're the ones most desperate to cling on to that, which is, peaceful. Usually always the innocent person, and usually the one that's like, man, I'm so confused, what the heck is going on? You know, let's talk about it. And the other person that has kind of like something that may be a mirroring, they are projecting what they feel on a person and making a person feel guilty. And the truth is they know they hiding something, if that makes sense.
No, that makes some sense. But I'm saying from like you said, the side of being a person who you feel is right. And the example I can use is, for like my mom and my dad split when I was super young. Like I was probably like 5 years old, right? And for the longest, my dad, was an immigrant, so my dad got sent back to Mexico for some, legal stuff, whatever. And I hadn't talked to him for 20 plus years. And there was a feeling of resentment against him. There was a feeling of like, like hatred, like you said, like just being upset. And for the longest time, I'm just like, how could you do that to your son? Especially now having a son. Like, I think, it was just like kind of amplified. But I was just in that situation where I was like, I just don't understand how you could just,
Exactly.
cut communications off. And like you said, but I still never forgave him, right? Like I said, like we stopped talking when I was 5 years old. So still was in that situation where I never forgave him. And it wasn't until probably like 6, 7 years ago, like a lot of my family members from my dad's side started adding me on Facebook, like cousins I've never met, um, just family members I never met before, and they were all just like reaching out, like saying they wanted to meet me and things of that nature. And like I said, I've never met any of these people, and one of them ended up getting me into contact with my dad. My dad added me on Facebook, and we ended up having a conversation with each other. And it was quick. It wasn't something like super long or nothing like that. But it was at that moment where I forgave him, and I was like, his issue was never with me, right? And I think we see this, especially now, right? Like I think with social media, with YouTube, and you can see court cases, like parents weaponize your child against each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was a weapon my mom could use against my dad.
Exactly.
And I think there's only, especially being in a different country, there's only so much you can do, right? So it's easily to paint that picture of him not being a caring father or not wanting to be around because he's not there to defend himself in that situation. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying he's in the right. I'm not saying he did no wrong, but I now being older and being a father myself, I could definitely see the real issue was between them, right? And it shouldn't have spilled over into myself and my brother and sister, but it did. And it took me, like I said, it took me 20, 25 years to finally kind of accept that and be like, I really shouldn't have been as mad at you as I was. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And
Yeah.
reading, this part of Genesis and Jacob's story, like that resonated with me because I'm like, it doesn't happen overnight. And I think with Jacob's story, it wasn't the very next day he understood, oh, this is where I messed up, this is where I got to do better. It takes time. And I think, hopefully the next time I'm in that situation, hopefully I'm not in that situation. But if I am in that situation again, hopefully it's not 20 years of figuring it out. Like, hopefully not 20 years of disliking somebody or having a negative energy towards somebody. Hopefully,
All right.
I can figure it out a lot sooner.
Yeah. It's the key there is, like we were talking about earlier, the motivations of a man, right? The ambitions. What is driving that person? Are they doing it for themselves, because they just want to get ahead, like you saying, cussing out somebody in the gym, just because you want to get a spark in the energy. I want to go back to your dad and your mom, just like, and connecting them back to the whole story. Your dad, yeah, that's a messed up situation. But the issue with your dad is his pride too. Is you know how embarrassing that situation is for him, and that's the key. Your dad's gonna be super embarrassed for one. He's gonna be super, resentful for whatever situation and everything. Especially you as his son. And as a man and everything. And I can talk in his shoes as somebody who's going through that right now. Especially you as his son, and him knowing that he just got kicked out of the country. He's now looking like I can't even breathe, and then this woman, she was probably the devil to him. And that's unfortunate because he probably felt like he had to do everything for himself at that point in time. And there's only one answer to that. And that is him. That is the Father, that is God, that is Jesus. And that is the problem with us as men. And I think that's why we're having faith society right now, is because somebody like your dad probably, at that time was like the last thing he was thinking about was praying. The last thing he was thinking about was, maybe he should go to church, man, get on his knees or something like that, because that sounds so ritualistic. It sounds so fabricated, almost religious, that you're like, man, I ain't doing none of that. I got to take care of myself right now. I got to get back on my grind. I just got kicked out the country. Man, I get my bread up, man. Ain't no woman ever going to do this to me, all this, that, and that, and this chatter, because he's got to repair himself instead of going to the one who can, supply him all of his needs, man.
Oh,
And
100%. Yeah.
And just to end that with that right there is saying is that yeah, your dad definitely holds accountability to that for sure. But I would say is the thing that's going to keep you from doing it 20 years. And let's fast forward because now you're your dad, right? You're your dad. You're Jose Hernandez, and now you're the father.
A
You
full
trusted
government
in
name.
him. You trusted in the Lord. You don't think about, oh, there's no book outside of his living breath, bro, that is going to be able to ever help you recover. You as a man, you go out, you do your life and everything, no matter what happens, no matter what happens out there and everything. Your firm foundation where you are right now, stay with your faith, man. And that's for
Yeah.
me, that's for all the brothers that's listening, ladies that's listening too. You have a firm foundation in him. He's a solid rock and he is not immovable.
No, 100%. Yeah, not, and like you said, like I think that's why we created this space really, right? It's not about in, like I mentioned in episode 1, like I'm not preaching, I'm not a pastor, like that's not what I'm here for. But I definitely think it's an area where we live in a society today where you go on Instagram, you sent me something earlier. You go on Instagram, Twitter, and see negativity, and people will discuss it. It won't even be something that needs to be discussed, but people will have a conversation in the comments about it, just just to converse. And
Exactly.
and I think we can do that with the Bible too. Like I don't think I I have to be all knowing when it comes to this. And I mentioned that like I'm still learning, right? Like it's this is like my study, like my Bible study. And I hope this is somebody
Amen.
this
Amen.
like this is somebody else's Bible study as well. Like they listen to us and they have those same they can resonate with it the same way we resonate with it, or it plants a seed to them somewhere else to be like, this is how it resonates with me. And it might not be the same situation. It might obviously, right? We all don't have the same situations, but I definitely think that this is a safe place where we can have positive talks about even bad situations, right? And see them in the light of how I think people can heal, where we can heal. Like you mentioned, we're in a healing process while we film this. Like we're still not where we want to be. It's still a process. We're still on that journey, but I think it's
Hey, listen,
dope.
man. Hey, listen. I'm still on my mom's couch, man. I'm
Yeah,
happy about. Listen, I'm happy about it, I'm not ashamed. I have nothing to hide. But you know what I mean, like that. That's my situation. I placed myself in that situation because, listen, we're still becoming. Ain't nobody gotta hide anything here. You know what I mean? So yeah.
yeah, no, definitely. And you know, before we wrap up, I think that that's perfect. It's like you're saying, like, this is what I want to ask the people who are going to listen to this and yourself, like, what part of this story do you think reflects the most to you? Like, which part of Jacob's story do you resonates with you the most?
Laban, Laban, because as a man, I realized something is that I can't do anything in this world alone. And I'm not using Laban as a situation of anything that Jacob was involved in. But what I want to talk about is Laban as a man, somebody who has resources, somebody who is older, somebody who is has something that you want, right? So in Jacob's situation, he wanted the wife, he wanted his daughter. But let's talk about somebody being in a business perspective or having that job offer, right? And everything. And there's a humility there and there's a dealing. And when you get in those situations, let's talk about karma again. Now, you want to place yourself, you want to start small seeds and plant small seeds. Because remember, Jacob was a bad hill catcher, man, and he was planting bad seeds. So by the time the opportunity came, he reaped what he sowed, man. And when he got in the face with somebody who maybe even they were a scoundrel or something like that, or maybe he could have avoided Rachel. We don't know all those situations. But what I do know is this is that if he would have, like you said earlier, you said when I was playing basketball, I was building up for the flesh instead of for what I felt for the spirit. If a man could truly build up what he felt for the spirit and put that in the seeds, maybe he doesn't have to worry about what it looks like in the future. Maybe he can recall scriptures such as Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for, goodness and pleasure throughout your entire life. You know what I mean? The righteousness, those who never forsake my righteous hand shall never know of any drought. Their leaves shall remain green at all times. Even when the fire comes in the storm, they will always be blossoming and blooming because they are sitting at my right hand. When you become somebody who starts building a spirit up like that, you don't the future can kind of just happen. Jacob's prayer, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for your rod and your staff are with me. They comfort me. You lead me beside still waters. You know what I mean? In the presence of my enemy, my head is anointed with oil, fam. These are sayings of a man who was chased by his own ruler. Saul was coming after David's life, and he's writing these prayers in caves, bro, hiding out. He's like, no matter what, Lord, I know who you've called me out to be. I know what's going on, because he had the faith. And I just leave that with you guys as we close for sure. And I don't even know if I can say any more, man.
All right. No, I think that's perfect, man. I think one thing I think would one more question I wanted to ask, and I think for the viewers too, like something you can write in the comments or keep to yourself and think while listening to the podcast is what's one trait or one part of Jacob that you could say remind you of yourself. And in that, I'm not saying it has to be one of his bad traits, right? It could be when he changes, but even if you think about like what part of Jacob's story do I feel like I might be in now? And we don't have to delve into it too deep, but I definitely think for the viewers, if you're listening, like write something in the comments you feel like this is, where I feel like I'm at now, and where I want to be at in the future, or this is where I was at and this is where I'm at now. Because I definitely feel like Jacob's story resonates with everybody, right? Like I think for the most part, a lot of us have been there, and I think this is a beautiful journey we're on, man.
It is. It is. Did I have to
Well,
answer that question you asked?
yeah, no, go ahead. You can.
Oh, man, okay. Hey, being called out, man. That one for me is an easy one. That came right to my mind is being given the name, man. Going from Jacob to Israel, like we started in the beginning, man. Hold on, wait a minute. The name that I'm giving you is a new name, man, and you're gonna walk in that and being able to bear that weight, becoming a new man.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I definitely think, like I said, like being where I was at 10 years ago, 5 years ago, like I definitely was about myself, man. And I don't think I've ever, like I said, did anything to hurt anybody else, but I mean, maybe I did and I just didn't even realize it, you know? But I'm definitely at a place right now where I just want to put good into the world, like whatever it is, even, this podcast, the way I'm with people at work, on social media. Like I'm not trying to attack anybody. I'm not trying to get a foot up on anybody. I'm just trying to be good, man. That's really my main goal, and I definitely feel like being good, it's going to pay off, right? Like that's going to be returned to me. So uh, I think that's a perfect ending, man. I don't know if you want to make a tradition where you send us out in prayer, or we could go whatever works best for you, man.
If you want me to pray, bro, I love praying. I love praying, but I'm never gonna go and be like, oh, I gotta pray. So whatever you want to do.
No, man, you could
Listen, if you let me
we'll
pray, bro, listen, man, I'm gleaming, bro. If you're gonna let me
yeah,
do
well,
it, go ahead.
no, go ahead, man. I'm not gonna take that from you, man. We'll get to the point, man. We'll play back and forth with it. We're alley oop it, man. But this definitely, I think it's only right, man. I think it's only right. You were the last one to show up today. You'll be the last one to speak for us today, man.
Oh, this episode went smoothly, and no glitches, no errors, and everything. So shout out for that. Um, First thing, Father, I just want to be transparent with my heart to you. And want to just come sincere to you, Lord, is that you know, I'm nervous, Father, even in this season right now where I'm confident and everything, with everything that Jose and I have got going on. There's a nervousness that sometimes, what if what if you take a shot and you miss? But even then, Lord, I know that you are on the throne. And as we've been going through, we're realizing, and I am not by any means better than anybody, Lord. I am not smarter than anyone. You know, I come before your throne fully with humility. And I just invite you into this atmosphere, Lord, to know that even as a man with all the confidence, Lord, that the insecurities, we just surrender them to you right now. And for anybody else out there in the chat that is going through a situation where they're just going forward with it, they're like, I can't look back. I gotta go and everything, but they're still scared. We just release that fear right now to you, and we surrender that and ask for you to bring into us um that conquering energy of fear, to remove the fear out of there, to remove the noise, that comes from the snakes and the scorpions, as the Messiah says, where you gave us the authority to cast out demonic scorpions and snakes of the kingdom of darkness. We declare that power and that energy right now and come against all forces and darknesses of evil from New York all the way over to Vegas, all the way over to anywhere, Japan, any countries, Iran, Israel, Africa, you name it, all situations right now. We just come and we take authority over those things. And again, we just release your assignment in this prayer of Jesus. It says, let your will be done, let your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. And I just say amen to that.
Amen, amen. I think that's a good ending, man. Um, to pop to my into my head, everybody. For our next episode, episode 3, we will be starting, our study of Exodus. So if you want to get a head start on that, just to follow the conversation a little more to know what we're talking about. I think that ending Genesis here and starting that up and starting our our study of that will be perfect.
Nice. I like Exodus.
Yeah, man. This perfect, man. And everybody give us grace. Like I said, this is our only our second episode. But like Steve said, there's tons of improvement already. And
Oh,
you
I
know,
can't.
day day by day, we're both going to get better. Like, I feel like I'm more personable today, maybe because it's Sunday. You guys won't be hearing this on Sunday. It'll probably be on a Saturday, but maybe we'll have to start doing Sundays, man. Maybe it brings out the best in me. I don't know. Lakers won today. If any of you guys are sports fans, it is March 8th. Just so everybody knows, when you're listening to this, that's when we recorded it.
Hey man,
But
we lost an hour, man. I was not asleep during that time, man. I was going to the gas station when that happened. Like whenever that switch happened, I was not happy. It was three
yeah,
something when I saw the time, and then it said four, and man, that messed me up.
no, I woke up today and I it was like 8:40. And I'm like, dang, it's late. Like usually I don't wake up that late, And I'm like, well, what the heck is going on? And then I'm talking to my wife, and we're talking about going to church. And I'm like, it's gonna be 9 o'clock. Like it's kind of late for that. And ended up going to the second service today, but that's our clock in the what reason I noticed it was daylight saving time because the clock in our on our stove been wrong because of daylight saving time. They never
Right, right.
changed
The
it.
stove never updates.
So so it's always been an hour ahead.
Hmm.
And when I looked at it and I looked at my phone, it was the same time. I'm like, why is it the same time? And that's when I realized, like, oh, it was daylight saving time. I'm like, that makes sense. So I actually woke up before 8, like before this hour jump. But the hour jump, made me lose that hour. So it makes sense. It makes sense because I was definitely tripping about it, man. I was like, there ain't no way I'm waking up this late.
I'm finally recovering from it, bro.
That's that's how. Before you joined, man, if I had to go solo, I was gonna blame daylight savings time on you not showing up. That was gonna be the game plan, man.
I thought you was going. I thought you was just going to adjust to the time. Now listen, you texted me and you said, "Hey, yo, you know what? We'll figure it out." So I was like, "All right, cool. He can give me an hour." And then I jump in here and you over here recording stuff. I'm like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, nah, man. That's a loss. I deleted it, man. I deleted it. But like I said, I think what was made me confident is I held this throughout the whole show, man. I don't know, it was just the grace of God, man. I just, like I said, this episode just went a lot better. If y'all still listening, y'all just listening for fun, man. This, we already said, the show ended, man. So this is the after party. The after show.
After
Uh,
party.
the after party. So you guys are just listening for entertainment purposes at this point. Um, but no, man, this. I feel it, man. We got
Episode two,
something.
bro. Feels good,
Episode
right?
two.
Look,
Episode
got a little
two.
slight. Look, he's swinging in the chair, bro. You know,
Swinging
all
in the
lean back.
chair. This lean back, man. Uh, but yeah. So
When's the next time we going on?
we'll discuss that off camera, man. If I don't want people to expect something from you and you end up not showing up. But we're out,
Dang, man, we
man. We're
starting to
out. I
roast it early.
appreciate
Hold
you
on,
guys.
I thought he repented, y'all. I thought he repented from this. I thought you
No,
repented from this stuff, bro.
have a good week, everybody. Stay blessed. Stay blessed. All right, we
I
out.
got him.